Namaste everyone. One quick note about how we can learn from one asana to the other, how we can maintain the flow of intelligence as we practice from asana to asana. Now, I just want to quickly visit an aspect of how the sternum is worked and how the work of the sternum could be lost from asana to asana, but how the intelligence needs to be flowing. For example, when we stand in Tadasana, of course, maintaining the thighs back, maintaining the rotation of the leg, maintaining the equal positioning of both the outer and inner ligaments of the knee, firmness of the shin, spreading of the toes, anchoring of the root of the toes, toe mounts, and allowing the thigh to be over the heel, keeping the arch open. Of course, I'm running through that quickly because I want to come to the thorax. And of course, pelvic stability, the rim of the pelvis parallel, where you're not dropping the front pelvis, pushing the buttock out, or dropping the front thighs, pushing the buttock overtly in, thighs back, maintaining an upward lift of the abdomen, integration of the sacrum, lift of the abdomen, lift of the chest, lift of the diaphragm, spreading of the clavicles. Now we'll come to this portion. When we talk about lifting the chest, we use the sternum as an instrument, intercostals as an instrument, side body as an instrument to lift our chest. Let me develop this a little more. As far as the upper chest is concerned, the principles of opening the clavicle, when I open the clavicle's opening teaches me where the outer boundaries of my shoulder are. I don't need to look and find out. The opening of the clavicle will lead me to the outermost points of the shoulder. At this point, let's say I keep my hand on the waist. You see how the shoulder pops in front. That is, the humerus angulates itself in front. This should be changed. So when the clavicle is open, it takes me to the outer edges of the shoulder, and this humerus is not just pushed back, it's rolled back. Why rolling? The humerus articulates towards the back of the socket and sits down when the shoulder blade and trapezius sits down. So from this anterior forward rotation, it rolls back and down. Once that happens, the shoulder blade needs to be fixed in. If the shoulder blade stays hanging back, it compresses the chest and drops the sternum, so the shoulder blade needs to be fixed in. To fix the shoulder blade, you really have to sculpt the armpit. Many times when we are standing through the day, whether we are driving, we are cooking, we are working, we are writing, the armpit always remains closed and the side of the body always remains dropped. In order to be able to pull the shoulder blade in, from the back of the armpit, we have to sculpt through the front of the armpit. This has to be done with caution, because if overdone, then it pushes the front of the spine, that is the thoracic chest, forward and leaves the buttock backward, hyper-concaving or creating a hyperlordosis at the lower back. So you have to think that while the clavicles are opening, upper arms are rolling back, armpit is being sculpted to engage the shoulder blade, from the outer groins to the outer edges of the floating rib, diaphragm, to the back armpit, I am creating a linear extension. When I pull the back ribs in, shoulder blade in, I am maintaining that linear extension and not allowing the body to pop front and back. This linear extension then progresses to our understanding of Urdhva Sthasana. In Urdhva Sthasana, we have to think that the arm doesn't just originate from the socket, but originates all the way from the hip. So from the outer corner of the groin, rising through the outer floating rib, rising through a sharp outer armpit. Why I am saying outer armpit? Do you see? The inner armpit always tends to be higher than the outer armpit. And the more the outer armpit drops, the more the side body's intelligence is dropped. So this outer armpit needs to rise as high as the inner armpit. And this height of the outer armpit is then carried through with very sharp fingers. Now, coming back to our point. In Tadasana, when I broaden my clavicle, roll my humerus back and fix the armpit, the openness of the front of the chest, that is the anterior spine's opening, is ample. The side of the body may tend to drop. Whereas what do we see in Urdhvasthasana? As we take our hands up and really try to lift the outer edges of the body from the outer hip to the outer floating rib to the outer armpit all the way to the intelligence of the fingers, the side body is lifted, but here the sternum congests. The breast comes together and stifles the sternum. So now let us understand the action of the sternum. The sternum as a unit has an upper part, which is the manubrium, the body of the sternum, the middle sternum, and the lower sternum, the xiphoid process. When a person hunches, the bottom sternum pierces into the body. The body of the sternum drops and the top manubrium sternum pops or falls forward. So this is what happens when a person hunches. To reverse that, what is digging in? The bottom xiphoid process needs to be brought out as if it makes contact with the skin or the t-shirt. The center of the sternum needs to be lifted up, and the top sternum, which has the tendency to fall forward, needs to be lifted up and slightly back and spread into the clavicles. So that is the opening of the sternum. Now this opening of the sternum needs to be maintained as we go to Urdhvasthasana. And Urdhvasthasana's lift of the side body must be maintained when it comes to Tadasana. What happens in Tadasana? The frontal chest is open but the side body shrinks. In Urdhvasthasana, the side body lifts but the frontal chest sinks. That is, the length of the side body is tall but the length of the frontal chest from the pubis to the navel to the sternum through the notch of the throat is shorter. So Urdhvasthasana should teach us the sharpness of the side body. Tadasana should teach us the anterior chest's brilliance, opening, and when we do asanas, the intelligence of the anterior chest from Tadasana should be understood, maintained, and the sharp intelligence of the side body from Urdhvahasta Tadasana should be maintained. Therefore, let's say we do Adho Mukha Svanasana, which I'll show you now using the rope as an example. I'm putting the rope over my groin, stepping forward, throwing my weight over the rope so that the rope doesn't dislodge, placing my hand down, and then stepping back such that my heels are at a 45-degree angle from the middle toe to my center back heel is centered on the wall, and I'm keeping my legs hip width apart, equidistant from that hook. Now here the hands are forward. When I decide to take my hand forward, I really understand from the cut of the rope where the outer groin is. So from that point, my intelligence has to penetrate the side of the floating rib. From there, the side of the armpit. From there, the extension of the arm. So if I take one small step, I am creating that intelligence from Urdhvashtha Tadasana. Now there, I am thinking of Tadasana. I am pressing my palm, trying to see whether the xiphoid process or the base of the sternum can be pulled, can be included forward, the length of the sternum to be, body of the sternum to be lengthened, and the manubrium sternum to be lifted and spreading through the clavicles. So when I take my hand fully in Adho Mukha Svanasana, I am trying to see whether the intelligence of Urdhvashtha Tadasana in the side body and the pulling of the back ribs, pulling of the shoulder blade in, and lengthening articulation of the sternum from Tadasana can be understood in the progress of my asana. Of course, the buttock needs to be lifted. From the sacrum, the intelligence has to flow through the length of the spine, as if from the sacrum traveling through the canal of the spine, through the crown of the head, I am able to move forward. But the asana's intelligence from Tadasana and Urdhvashtha Tadasana should not be forgotten. The intelligence should continue to penetrate.